Hello YouTube, how's everyone doing? It's Professional here. So today I have a really cool lore video for you guys. I hope you guys enjoy this one, but this is kind of a weird one because this is a lore video technically, but not only is it just a lore video, it's also explaining why things are in GTA 4 and tying it specifically to real life events. But anyways, I've had actually a lot of people over the years ask me about this specifically, which is about the Statue of Happiness. Now the Statue of Happiness in GTA 4 is based on the real life Statue of Liberty in New York. It's one of the most important locations in GTA 4, and it's actually where both endings of GTA 4 actually take place on this island. Now, if you actually look at the Statue of Happiness in GTA 4, you notice something about it if you look really closely. And what is that? It's actually who the Statue of Happiness is, the face of it. Let's take a look right here. Yeah, that is actually Hilary Clinton on the Statue of Happiness. And not only does the Statue of Happiness have Hilary Clinton on it, but instead of having a torch in its hand, the Statue of Liberty is actually holding up a coffee cup, and the coffee cup is hot. So what is the reason for this? And this is, I personally think, this is Rockstar's greatest parody of all time. Out of all the funny things that they've ever done placed in GTA games, in my personal opinion, I think this is the greatest Rockstar parody of all time. Now, why exactly Hillary Clinton on here? Now, I'm going to stay away from the politics because this is a video game channel. I don't talk politics. However, though, when politics gets involved in video games, especially when politicians want to ban video games, then I do talk about that. And that is actually the specific reason behind this. So this goes all the way back to 2005. So Hillary Clinton was actually former senator of New York. I'm actually originally from New York. Hillary Clinton served as Senator of New York from 2000 to 2009. She was elected originally in 2000 as Senator, and then in 2006 she won a re-election campaign. In 2008 she tried a candidacy for president. She failed, and then in 2009 she was appointed Secretary of State by President Obama, and in 2016 she also tried to run a presidential campaign. That's a little bit of background on her, just so you know. She's a pretty important person in American politics, but again, I'm going to stay away just from the politics, but instead just talk about why she is specifically here in the game. So the reason that she's actually specifically in GTA 4 is because of her time as Senator of New York, and it's actually because of this video right here. So this is actually when she actually attacked Grand Theft Auto. So Hillary Clinton actually directly went after Grand Theft Auto and a few other video games, and then she was actually trying to regulate these video games, and she was actually blaming these video games for real-world violence and for corrupting our children, and this is primarily the reason why Rockstar made fun of her. So I'm going to be reacting to this video, breaking it down. I will also break down the law that she proposed. Thankfully, the law that she proposed failed years ago, and I'll also be explaining the coffee cup and why that is relevant. So here we go. Let's react to this video.
I'm here today as a parent and a senator, and along with my colleagues and so many of the advocates from around the country, we are determined to stop a situation in which video games with pornographic and violent content are being peddled to our children. Today I'm announcing, along with my colleagues, Senator Lieberman and Bai, the Family Entertainment Protection Act. This bill will prohibit the sale of violent and sexually explicit video games to minors and will give parents the tools they need to make informed decisions.
Give them the tools to make informed decisions? She's basically saying that parents are stupid and don't know what kind of games their kids are playing unless she passes these laws, and that parents need these laws. If you're a parent, how do you not know what kind of games your child is playing? Why are you, as a parent, buying your kid Grand Theft Auto if you don't want your kid to play Grand Theft Auto? Instead, these parents turn to the government and they say, I want you to do something about this. But you're the one who let them play Grand Theft Auto in the first place. Don't let them play Grand Theft Auto if you don't want them to play Grand Theft Auto. It's as simple as that. I don't understand this. And what I'll say about this is these politicians, oftentimes, they do stuff like this, is that their elections are coming up, and this is, 2005 when she's saying this. So she's about to be senator again in 2006. So basically, politicians do this a lot of times, is they will pick an issue and that a lot of people don't understand. So a lot of, more parents today, understand video games more, but in 2005, a lot of parents actually did not understand video games that well. It was still, even though video games existed for decades, console gaming was starting to become a new thing then. And so basically what these politicians do is when the elections are coming up, is they will say, oh, violent video games, these are corrupting your kids. Vote for me, I'll put an end to this. And what happens is the media also writes stories about this. The media loves writing stories about violent video games, even though there's no proof whatsoever that video games cause real world violence. They say that this corrupts our children, and they do this primarily for headlines, because when parents see the headlines that their kids, they see the video games that their kids are playing is corrupting them, they get paid a lot of close attention to that. They watch the media, buy the newspaper, etc.
Now, as the holiday season is upon us, this is a particularly important time to raise awareness of this issue. Video games are hot holiday items, and I understand that. They are certainly entertaining and even educational in many instances. They can help our children learn, they can increase hand and eye coordination, but it is also clear that there are games that are just not appropriate for children. And busy parents are looking for some guidance all the time, but especially during this hectic holiday season.
So what I'll say right here is that at least she said at the start that not all video games are bad, but then she makes a really stupid remark in which she says that these games are not appropriate for children. They're not meant for children. GTA is an M-rated game. It's a crime game. You play as a gangster. It's meant for 17 and up. That's what it's always said on the cover. Even GTA 3, when it came out in 2001, it said M-rated, 17 and up, directly on the cover there. That's what it said. And then, what? It also really pisses me off when I hear her say that parents are too busy this holiday season and they need guidance. Guidance in what exactly? Like I said again, you're saying that parents are stupid. You're saying that parents are just too busy that they don't notice what games their kids are playing. How can you not notice what games your kids are playing? If you don't want your kids playing Grand Theft Auto, you don't let your kids play Grand Theft Auto. My God. It's like you don't have to involve the government in every single thing.
Now, as you can see from the posters that we have displayed here, many games contain content that is deeply disturbing. It's almost routine in popular games for players to spray other people with Uzis, to drive over pedestrians, to kill police officers, to attack women, and in some cases, even to engage in cannibalism.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Oh my God, where do I start with this? Okay, like I was saying, Grand Theft Auto is a crime game. It's a gangster game. It's not going to be a gangster game if you don't fight the police, if you don't commit crimes. If you don't commit crimes, it's not a gangster game anymore. It's not Grand Theft Auto. That's the whole point of the game, is you're playing as a gangster. No rational person is going to look at Grand Theft Auto and then say, hey, I want to do this stuff in real life. No, it's made purely for entertainment reasons. And then the most ridiculous part, when she just says, cannibalism? What? Cannibalism. She is saying that video games encourage cannibalism. I don't know of any game from 2005, this is when she made this speech. I don't know of any game in 2005 that allows you to do cannibalism. I honestly don't. The only game that I actually know that actually lets you do cannibalism is the Fallout games. And in the Fallout games, when you do cannibalism, all the other characters hate you for it. The game makes it clear that you're a bad person. The game makes you lose karma for engaging in cannibalism. The game tells you that it's wrong. Even though you have the option to do it, the characters in the game frown upon it, and you're heavily criticized for it, and you lose karma, and people also attack you in the game. And then when she also says that you can attack women in these games, but what she's forgetting is that you also play as women in these games. Now, in this time in 2005, you didn't really have that many open world games with female characters. That is true. But then you had, Saints Row 2 came out in 2008, and Saints Row 2 is really the first gangster game where you can actually play as a female gangster. And even GTA 6, which is coming out, coming out in the next few years, one of the main characters in that, Lucia, is a female gangster. So you can also play as women gangsters in these games. So I don't know what she's talking about exactly, that you can attack women when you can play as women gangsters. No, like I said, no rational person is going to support attacking women in real life because it happens in a video game. And you also attack men. You fight pretty much everyone in Grand Theft Auto. You just cause chaos. You fight the police. It's just a crime game in general. You mess around. You just do ridiculous things in the game. It's not meant to simulate real life, and nobody is meant to get any kind of ideas from it. It's just purely entertainment. That's all it is.
Players commit gruesome acts like these using top-of-the-line graphics in stunningly realistic detail. Now, it is up to adults whether they wish to expose themselves to this type of violence and pornography. But we have 40 years of research to tell us that violent media is bad for our children. According to the most comprehensive statistical analysis yet conducted, violent video games increase aggressive behavior as much as lead exposure decreases children's IQ scores. And I want people to think about that. Everybody knows lead poisoning is bad for children. Oh, I want everybody to know that exposure to violent video games is also bad for children.
Okay, so what she's saying about these studies, this is actually completely false. And I actually did a paper about this. My final paper in college, my senior paper, was actually writing about how there's no correlation between real-world violence and violence in video games. Now, my professor at the time actually believed that violent video games actually do cause real-world violence, and I was actually able to convince him with my paper, which he gave me a good grade for it. He liked my paper. But anyways, about it is, you can just type in on Google. Just type it on Google. Do violent video games cause violence? And literally the first thing that comes up from Google, it says studies have shown no connection between video games and violent behavior. The American Psychological Association states that while there is a well-established link between violent video games and aggressive behaviors, empirical research finds there is little to no evidence connecting violence to video games. There is no proof that real-world violence is in any way connected to fictional video game violence. And I played violent video games when I was a kid. I played GTA Vice City when I was a kid. My parents let me play, games like Vice City because my parents understood and knew that I understood the difference between reality and a video game. My parents taught me well. And so whenever you have some of these rare situations, because you will have some of these rare situations that the media loves cherry picking, where basically you'll have some crazy person that will commit violence in real life, and when they get arrested, they'll say, I did this because I played Grand Theft Auto or something like that. There have been a few cases like that, but here's the truth about this, and what the media isn't telling you about those cases specifically. No rational person is going to sit down, play a game like Grand Theft Auto, and then decide to start committing crimes in real life. No rational person is going to do that. The media keeps saying these few cases where these crazy people went and committed violence because of a game like GTA. What they're ignoring is they're ignoring the mental state of that person before they started playing GTA. Because here's the reality. If somebody is crazy, if somebody's unstable, if somebody has severe psychological issues, if they play a game like Grand Theft Auto, they might get some kind of inspiration. They might get some kind of idea from the game. That is true. But that's not the fault of the game. That is that person that's crazy. That person has issues before they played the game. And then they play the game and they create some kind of fantasy from it. These cases are extremely rare, but these people are insane before they play the game in the first place. They have deep, deep issues before they play the game. And about these studies, here's what I'll tell you about these studies, what they're not telling you about them. She says we have 40 years of studies on this specifically. Well, console gaming in 2005, this is still becoming a relatively new thing, so you don't have 40 years of research on that. You might have 40 years of research on like movies and stuff like that, but here's the thing about that. Violent movies were treated the exact same way as violent video games back in the day. The media and politicians were saying movies like Rambo was going to encourage people to go and commit violence and attack people and commit shootings and stuff like that, but the thing is, they were comparing it to Rambo and other action movies, and they were just saying that, oh, this is going to cause our kids to become violent and stuff like this. Here's the reality of this. The studies that show that there's violence connected in violence in movies and video games, and it's somehow connected to real-world violence, these studies are actually a small amount. The vast majority of studies do not conclude that. However, though, the studies that conclude that violent movies and violent games cause real-world violence are much more likely to be reported on by the media and much more likely to be talked about by politicians. Remember, politicians do this to get elected, and the media does this as a business because it gets ratings. So think about it this way. What story is going to generate more views for the media? New study shows that games like Grand Theft Auto do not encourage real-life violence, or new study shows that Grand Theft Auto encourages crime in real life? Think about that. Which story is more likely to get covered? You can look that up. Studies that show that there's violence between, that there's correlation between violence in the real world and video games are much more likely to get reported than studies that show that they're not. And the studies that show that they're not are much more, there's much more of them. And the last thing about this, when she's comparing lead poisoning to video games, is she seriously comparing it? Is she, I'm not trying to misquote her here, but is she seriously comparing that lead poisoning is somehow similar to playing video games or even having a video game addiction? It is nowhere near close. Lead poisoning will cause you physical damage to your body. It poisons you. It's possible to be addicted to video games, sure, but it's much easier, to treat addiction to video games than treat lead poisoning. Lead poisoning kills you. So, my God, it's just these politicians make just some ridiculous statements. Let's move on.
There was testimony before the Senate Commerce Committee in 2000 that playing video games, violent video games, accounts for a 13 to 22% increase in teenagers' violent behavior. Yet we know that such games are easily accessible. A recent study by the National Institute on Media and the Family found that children between the ages of 9 and 14 were able to purchase M-rated video games nearly 50% of the time. Furthermore, nearly a quarter of retailers didn't even understand the ratings they were supposed to enforce. And only half of the stores surveyed train employees in the use of the ratings. Well, we need to do better, and that's why we're introducing the Family Entertainment Protection Act. And let me be very, very clear. This legislation is not about government censorship or regulation of content. Quite simply, it is about protecting children and empowering parents. We need to treat violent video games the way we treat tobacco, alcohol, and pornography. We know that these products are damaging to children, and we need to give parents the tools to keep them out of kids' hands.
This is very much government interference in video games, despite her denying it. When I was a kid, it was illegal to sell an M-rated game to a kid under 17 years. It was 17 and up. And if somebody looked like they were 17 or possibly younger, you had to ask them for ID. You had to ask them for ID. The retailer could not sell you the game like that. I tried to buy M-rated games at times when I was a kid. I was denied for it. They wouldn't let me buy it. My parents instead bought me some M-rated games, but again, remember what I said. My parents knew that I understood the difference between reality and a video game, and my parents were fine with me playing these games. They understood them. But if parents don't want their kids playing games like Grand Theft Auto, then they shouldn't be buying their kids Grand Theft Auto, and they should be looking at what games their kids are specifically playing. But you have parents who don't care about that. Possibly parents are irresponsible, and then turn to people like her, and her election campaign is coming up, which was in 2005. Her election campaign is next year after this video in 2006, and so she's trying to get reelected, and so this is one of the things that she's literally pushing for her campaign.
If you put it just really simply, these violent video games are stealing the innocence of our children, and it is certainly making the job of being a parent even more difficult. So the time has come to put on the brakes and to just insist that parents know what material is in the video games their children play, and to pass laws with real teeth that will send a clear message that we really do mean business. I'm pleased now to introduce Norman Rosenberg, who is the president and CEO of Parents Action for Children, a nonpartisan network of parents founded by the actor and director Rob Reiner. Parents Action for Children mobilizes parents to stand up for policies that put children and families first. And Mr. Rosenberg has certainly done that in his 30 years of advocacy on behalf of children's welfare. He first came to Washington in 1977 when he fought for the rights of children with disabilities. He's a native New Yorker, and brought up in New York City, graduate of the State University of New York at Buffalo, and a former professor in SUNY Buffalo's School of Law, where he taught family law and juvenile justice. And finally, what may make him even more qualified to be here today is he is the father of twin boys, just like Senator Bai. So Mr. Rosenberg looks at the effect of violent and pornographic video games on children in a very personal way.
You're telling me that this guy is some kind of professor and he can't even tell himself what kind of video games his kids are playing? It's not that hard to tell what kind of video games your kids are playing. Even if you are a parent and you know absolutely nothing about video games, when your kid shows you a game which clearly says M-rated on it and says Grand Theft Auto, even if you've never heard of Grand Theft Auto, you can tell this is a game for adults. You can clearly tell it's a violent crime game for adults. How can somebody not tell that it's a violent crime game? Even people that don't play video games at all, when they just look at the cover of Grand Theft Auto, they can tell this is a violent game. So again, this is meant for a mature audience. If you don't want your kids playing it, you don't let them play it. It's as simple as that. Don't buy the games for them. But I just don't get it. I know I'm repeating myself here a lot, but it just makes absolutely no sense, these comments that they're making. But that's pretty much it for her speech. There's nothing after that. Now that we've covered her face on it and her hatred of violent video games like Grand Theft Auto, why exactly is she holding a hot coffee cup? Is it a reference to New York that so many people actually drink coffee on the go? Nope, it's actually not a reference to that at all. This is actually the reason why she actually has a hot coffee cup. Take a look at this. This is from 2005.
Now to what some are calling quite literally a dirty little secret. Sex scenes embedded in a wildly popular video game called Grand Theft Auto. If it's not in your house, there's a good chance your neighbors got it. It's a game that's already controversial, and now this, raising the question, can parents really trust what's on those warning labels? Here is NBC's Chip Reed.
The Grand Theft Auto video games are already notorious for their graphic violence. But the latest version, San Andreas, has a new twist that has some parents seething.
How about a little coffee?
Scenes of graphic sex, so graphic we won't show them, but this freeze frame should give you some idea. The scenes are buried inside the video and can be accessed only by downloading a program from the internet. But parents say for many teens, that's as easy as tying their shoes. Ronald Moten has picketed stores that sell the video and now prohibits his two young children from playing any video games.
You can't really go too far from your children because you don't know what they can be exposed to.
The San Andreas game, which has sold more than 5 million copies, is rated M for mature. In theory, that means you're supposed to be at least 17 years old to buy it, but the reality is very different.
A recent study found that 50% of boys between 7 and 14 successfully purchased M-rated video games. 87% have played them. The nonpartisan group behind the study has now issued a national parental warning, calling for San Andreas to be re-rated as adults only.
The games that parents think their kids are playing may not be the games that their kids are playing.
The mystery now, who put the sex scenes in San Andreas? The company that makes the game, Rockstar, blames an internet hacker. Today, Senator Hilary Clinton called for a federal investigation.
The ability of our children to access pornographic and violent material on an M-rated video game is spiraling out of control.
And, she said, making the difficult job of being a parent even harder. Chip Reed, NBC News, Washington.
So yes, that is the reason that the statue of Hilary Clinton is actually holding up a hot coffee. The reason is it's a parody off of the hot coffee mod. Now, originally, in the original version of GTA San Andreas, there was a mini game where after dates, that CJ could have sex with his girlfriends, and players would actually be able to see this. Rockstar took this out, and because the game would get an A rating. And what ended up happening is the files still were in the game, you just couldn't access them normally. However, the modders found the files and created a mod where players could actually download that. And when this got out, you know, the media freaked out about this, and what the media wasn't actually saying in that was this was only for the PC version. You know, people couldn't do this on the console version, so you couldn't do this on the PS2 version, which is actually the most common version of San Andreas. It was only on the PC version, but of course, the media doesn't report on that. But Hillary Clinton freaked out about that, and, you know, issued a whole another press conference about that, showed a little glimpse of that. So she's no stranger to hating on Grand Theft Auto, and that's basically why she has a hot coffee cup in the game. It's Rockstar making fun of her, of just her going after GTA, saying that GTA is corrupting our youth, and also going after GTA for the hot coffee mod in it. But that's pretty much it for that. But I wanted to say just one other thing about this. The Statue of Happiness actually has a separate Easter egg also, and it's actually pretty hard to access it in the regular version of GTA 4 because there's no parachutes. In the Ballad of Gay Tony, it's actually easier to access it. But basically what you would do is you would just fly a helicopter as Nico, and you would just normally just jump off the side here. Helicopter would fall to the ground, but you would be up here. And then this door over here, you would just be able to automatically go through it. And when you go through it, you go to the very top, there's a ladder, and you see a beating heart. Now, this may be a reference to people saying that maybe downtown Manhattan is the heart of New York, but they're really saying that this is the heart of New York. But I suspect, personally, I've always believed that the heart of Liberty City is probably a parody off of the whole heart, I Heart New York shirts. They're also in GTA 4. There's also shirts in GTA 4 that say I Heart Liberty City. But it's been a very common thing with New York, where there's a thing called I Heart New York, and it spread to a lot of other cities. I Heart LA, you know, I Heart Chicago. So a lot of other cities started adopting it, but the trend really started picking up in New York originally. So that's personally what I always thought the heart personally represented. A little like funny Easter egg here on the side. But I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I hope I stayed away from the politics. I don't really talk politics. It's a gaming channel, and I respect everyone's views. I just wanted to explain exactly why Hillary Clinton was parodied in GTA 4, and you know, why Rockstar doesn't like her. And I personally think this was the greatest parody of all time. That's what I think. Rockstar, greatest parody of all time. And Rockstar has never admitted that it's Hillary Clinton, but if you take a look at her face, it's so obvious that it's Hillary Clinton. So thank you guys for watching. See you guys on the next one. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful day, guys.